Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints, back with some more FPL tinkering ahead of the 24-25 season. Before we get into it, just wanted to say a special thanks to everyone that's tuned in for my preseason content from the end of May to date. What I have noticed, however, is that a lot of you haven't subscribed, so if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, coming back to the content in this video, I was inspired by creating a No Haaland Draft off the back of this poll, which basically showed me that a considerable number of FPL managers are considering to go without either Haaland or without Salah or without both of them. So I thought it only made sense to just do a follow up and now do a No Salah Draft just to see what the options are. So without further ado, let's get straight into it and construct what I would consider to be the most effective draft without Mohamed Salah. So, first and foremost, in this draft, we are going to pick Haaland. Goes without saying that I have said in my previous videos that, okay, fair enough, you're not going to get Haaland, then surely you've got to get Salah. And if you're not going to get Salah, you've got to get in Haaland. So I'm not going to really give any further justifications. Yep, he is £15 million this season, but that price tag is worth it if he can, of course, deliver the goods on a regular basis, which no doubt he will, having had the rest as a result of not playing in the Euros. Now, with that said, without having Mohamed Salah in this 15, we need some sort of Liverpool cover. And in the case of the no Haaland draft, we had Gvardiol and Foden. So in the case of Liverpool, we look at the options that they have at hand, and clearly Alexander Arnold is the standout pick in the event you can't get Mohamed Salah, and no doubt some will try having both Salah and Haaland. They look at the other attacking options. I think Diaz could be an option, but of course played in the latter stages of the Copa America. Jota also is of interest, but again, fitness issues have been a problem in the past 2 seasons or so. And then on to the forwards, of course, you've got Darwin and Gakpo. If you know which one is nailed on for X-Mins under the new manager, then fair play to you. But I'm not going to go for Darwin, not going to go for Gakpo, just too much unknown issues right now with those players under the new regime. Just need to see how it pans out with pre-season and also those early game weeks. So I am going to get Alexander Arnold in, and the reason being that he's got that out of position potential. The number of assists speak for themselves, albeit last season was significantly lower than the previous 2 seasons. It's that fixture run that they've got from game week 1 up until game week 8. So with that, I'm going to give him a shot. New manager, he'd want to impress, and the new manager wants to impress as well. So in he comes. Now, in seasons gone by, I could easily then say, well, haven't got Mohamed Salah, I've got Alexander Arnold. I could even get Robertson in as well. But I just feel that with Robertson, doesn't seem to be the same player, if I just bring this up, from seasons gone by, where 2018-19 got over 200 points and then managed to maintain that sort of momentum in the seasons after. But then there was a massive dip from 2022 up to last season. Of course, injuries didn't help as well. And then the other option really is Virgil van Dijk. And again, you could say that we're probably in the off-peak Virgil van Dijk era now, unfortunately, as well. And with him, he's got a bit of attacking prowess on corners, of course, but the risk is that with double Liverpool defence and with him only really got that bullet header um, attack with him, I wouldn't want to just risk it all on that double up. So I'm not going to actually double up on Liverpool's defence there. So Trent comes in, and the other player I'm going to buy, again, £6 million, and it's really just on ownership alone. It's an Arsenal player, and it is Saliba. And I know there's talk with respect to Arsenal, 41% owned there, that there might be a bit more rotation with Arsenal's defence than the previous season due to some of the additions that they're linked with and the ones that they've got in. So I think Saliba is relatively safe, and some have questioned how trickier Arsenal's initial run will be, but I feel that a player like Saliba with Arsenal's defensive record is almost fixture-proof. So in he comes as well. And then my next defender that I'm going to get in, and I have said this, that this really isn't the season for premium defenders, but I'm going to kind of break my rule here and actually have 3 premium defenders in this draft without Mohamed Salah. So the one I'm going to pick here is Pedro Porro. With Porro, we've seen the attacking prowess that he possesses, 5.5 million, potentially underpriced, 11 attacking returns from a defender last season, albeit 136 points due to not enough clean sheets from Tottenham's perspective. We look at that run that they've got, Leicester, Everton in the opening games. Of course, Newcastle and Arsenal might be a trickier fixture run there, but then again, with his attacking prowess, you'd be confident enough to start him. And then beyond that, a series of green block fixtures. You could say that if you're going to wildcard potentially during mid to late October, that you've got a decent run to start him in all of those games, in fact. So I feel that he's being underlooked massively. Having said that, 24.7% ownership, didn't realize it was that high, but I feel that Pedro Porro does seem like a viable pick when you've got funds to spread around the pitch when there's no Mohamed Salah. So in he comes. Now, the fact that I've gone for this premium defense with locking with these 3 means I'm going to, of course, go for some 4.0s now just to balance the books, as it were. And I'm going to keep it nice and boring and players that are regular starters. And no doubt I've probably got them in my other drafts as well. So Harwood Bellis comes in, expected to start for Southampton. And of course, you got Charlie Taylor there as well, who's now at Southampton. But just keeping it nice and simple, Wout Weiss of Leicester, just due to the X-Mins. You wouldn't really want to start Weiss or Harwood Bellis in any of the opening games, but it's just that peace of mind that if Trent, Saliba or Porro don't start, you've got 2 starting defenders as your sub 2 and sub 3. So that is the defensive line. Now onto my goalkeepers as well. So I've got my Arsenal defensive cover, and what's missing here is the Chelsea's generous run of upcoming games after game week 1. So Sanchez being an expected starter, no nonsense pick. In he comes. And as I've mentioned in my previous videos, there isn't really a obvious 4.0 starter. Everyone seems to have picked Turner, who could actually go into the 3.9 territory if everyone begins to sell him. So I'm just going to pick, in this case, just to be a bit different, I'll probably pick Fabianski because his ownership is a lot less. So in he comes, but like I've said, it's almost like the 4.0 goalkeeping slot is basically just a placeholder slot at this moment in time. So with that back line of those 7 players, I've spent half my budget. So with the remaining budget, I've got to basically fill in the gap. And of course, I've already picked Haaland. So £50 million to spend on the remaining 7 players. So let's fill in the forward berths now in this iteration. And again, you want to maximize that spend, seeing as we don't have Mohamed Salah in this draft due to the reasons that I've stated. And I just want to reiterate, actually, before I pick the strikers, that as with my No Haaland draft, this No Salah draft isn't actually my updated draft. This is simply a mock draft because I want to basically refer back to that poll where there was like this movement for No Haaland. There's also a movement for No Salah. So I want to see, actually, can we make it work? And will it ultimately persuade me to drop one of those players or even both of those players. So it's really experimenting from that side. So of course, I've got Haaland in my squad. I'm also going to pick Ollie Watkins, just due to the sensational form that he was in last season. He's got the prowess of scoring as well as assisting. Aston Villa are now a Champions League club, and no doubt with the additions that they've got with their team for the 24-25 season, they'll get better. So in he comes. And just a reminder that Villa's opening fixtures seem fairly reasonable, just minus the Arsenal match, 6 green block fixtures, so makes sense to strongly consider some sort of Aston Villa cover. Now, onto that other forward berth. So you can see I've got 3 defenders. So I'm really going either for a 3-4-3 formation or a 3-5-2 formation. And as I did with the No Haaland Draft, I'm also going to go for a 3-5-2 formation as well. Again, we go to the forwards. We look at the 4.5 million forwards as well. Really, like the only options, Cannon, who we had for Leicester, and Ladapo, who I believe, if I've pronounced his name right, was actually playing, albeit in parts for Leicester during the first half of last season. Then he went out on loan, I believe, to Charlton Athletic. So again, between him and Cannon, it'll be limited mins, but I'm just going to pick Cannon because he, again, played in part for Leicester and just got in there as a placeholder, really. Someone who will almost certainly be my dud sub 3, picks up a point here and there. I don't mind. So, again, looking at some of these other strikers, Fraser, Joe, Stewart, again, I've not done the research to say which of those are really going to be getting more minutes, but just on the basis that Cannon got a few minutes here and there. Well, I say few, played 13 out of 46 of the championship games. So I think it's fairly logical to have him in there. That leaves us with 36.5 million to spend on the 5 midfield berths. So with that said, with the funds that are available, that works out to be just over £7 million per midfielder. Can I make it work? Well, let's see what can be done here. So one player that I'm going to get, again, just due to the money that's available and due to his star quality during the 23-24 season, and his price has doubled, more than doubled, it's Cole Palmer. He's on penalties and scores goals for fun, albeit some may argue more so against the lower placed teams, but he's a no-nonsense pick and has made an absolute star of himself at Stamford Bridge, so in he comes. He is my premium midfielder, and then that leaves me with 26 million, tough squeeze, for the remaining 5 berths. And you can see the next person goes without saying, it is Anthony Gordon. So there is another iteration whereby if I really wanted to, I could flip Cannon out, get Isak in, and then I wouldn't have Gordon, but it means 1 million less on my midfield. But then the midfield would be somewhat lopsided. And of course, midfielders in FPL get the extra point for a goal, the extra point for a clean sheet with a minimum of 60 minutes. So I really want to have a beefed up midfield. I say beefed up, but I'd rather, if I'm not going to have Mohamed Salah in this draft, then I want to make sure that I've got sufficient cover in midfield. So in comes Anthony Gordon. And then with what I've got left here, just need to be careful with how I navigate this draft. Someone who I'm going to pick because my spend now 18 and a half, not a lot to spend here. I'm going to pick Garnacho. Feel that he's been flying under the radar for many FPL drafts. And of course, if you just look at his stats, you say, oh, he's got 7 goals, 7 assists, doesn't tell the full story, and really came to the fore, especially towards the latter half of the season. So 14 goal involvements. And I've got no doubt that due to the way he's cemented himself as a regular starter for United, that the number of goal involvements that he gets in the Premier League will increase substantially during the 24-25 season. 6.5 million almost seems like a cheat code with him, so I can't really argue with that. And I'm going to just have him again as a way of spreading the funds in midfield, and that leaves me with 12 million to spend on my remaining two berths. And I'm going to go for someone, again, just due to the generous on of games, and something that people aren't doing is doubling up with Chelsea attackers. And you either see people having Nkunku or Palmer in their drafts, can't have both. But then in this No Salah draft, I'm going to make the case that let's maximize those green block fixtures and get Nkunku in. I know there's been a lot of like derision on why would someone select Nkunku due to the fitness issues and all this other stuff related to it. But if he's fit ahead of the game week 1 deadline and he's a likely starter, and of course the first fixture is tricky, but you'd still start both Palmer and Nkunku against Man City, that I think he is definitely someone that offers value for money. So in comes Nkunku in this draft. Now that leaves me with £5.5 million. And there's two things I could actually do here. If I really wanted to be a bit maverick, I could go to Aston Villa and go on a bandwagon pre-season player, and that is Rodgers at £5 million. And if I really wanted to, I could have Rodgers, and then with the extra half million, upgrade Nkunku to Eze at 7 million. But the reason why I haven't done that is with Eze, what was integral to Palace last season was having Elise in that starting lineup and also Mateta. And with Mateta playing in Olympic football, like I've mentioned in previous videos, I feel that that's going to massively impact on Eze. Of course, he'll have to step up and no doubt will still be at the forefront of the goal involvements. But I feel that without that triple attack being available anymore, albeit in the case of Mateta, it's just temporary until he's fully reintegrated after the Olympics, that I'm not going to take that risk. And I'd rather focus on Palmer and Nkunku as my Chelsea double up without Mohamed Salah in this draft. So again, I could even get Rodgers, but I don't even know if Rodgers is going to start, albeit the preseason form does look promising. And just as a reminder for Morgan Rodgers, just over 600 minutes last season with 4 goal involvements. So you're looking at what's left, £5.5 million. And every time I come onto like what's left in this threshold, there's only one player that keeps on coming up top. And I've sorted it by percentage. It has to be Hudson-Odoi. And I've mentioned it in the No Haaland video as well. He was pretty much a regular starter for Nottingham Forest from February onwards, except for 2 matches, I believe. 7 goals since mid-February. Forest had that generous run of opening games. Was it Liverpool away, 14th of September, Chelsea away, 5th of October. If you exclude them, got this golden run in those first 10 game weeks where you'd want to start Hudson-Odoi if you had him. So he really stands out. You've got Elanga, but X-Min's issue there as well. Got Souček, but then the attacking uh, element is something that can be questionable. We've got McGinn, £5.5 million as well. The issue with John McGinn is just the number of goal involvements, 11. Again, regular starter for Aston Villa, but just feel that you'd kind of want a bit more upside there. So is an option, but I can't really justify it. And I've got Watkins already there as well. Got Ross Barkley as well, of course. Again, with him, just depends where he's positioned. If it's as a deep lying like position, or if he's more advanced. So it's something to worth factor in as well. There's not really many options. Again, McTominay, if X-Mins wasn't an issue here as well. Yeah, it's not. There's not a lot to go for. Adingra, would be a very interesting pick for Brighton as well. 6 goals, 1 assist if he was a regular starter under the new manager. So one to also consider. Harvey Elliott, would you? Probably not. There's not a lot of options here. You're already down to Rodgers, McGinn maybe at a push, and Hudson-Odoi, but got Mainu as well. But I think with all that said, I would pick Hudson-Odoi due to the fixtures, due to this momentum he's got from the end of last season as well. I kind of feel I'm repeating myself with the same reasons that I picked Hudson-Odoi in the no Haaland draft, but I feel the reasons are the same and the funds are evenly spread in this draft. So I think that's that's how I'm looking at it basically. And looking at the funds, that's it. Budget's been maxed out. I'll do my famous super zoom in for this mock draft, which doesn't include Mohamed Salah. So 15 out of 15 picked. Sanchez is the goalkeeper, long haul goalkeeper for Chelsea. Fabianski as a dud 4.0, with less of a chance of his price dropping to 3.9, hopefully. That's why I've picked him over Turner for now in this draft. And you've got a premium triple defense of Alexander Arnold, Saliba, and Pedro Porro. Ask yourself on FPLX, have you got this sort of defense? You probably haven't. And you got Weiss and Harwood Bellis as the I say dud sub or sub one, sub two players who just want to hope that they are only called upon in an emergency. The midfield, Palmer, Nkunku, Garnacho, Gordon, Hudson-Odoi, fitness permitting, you'd expect all of them to be regular starters in their team. And this draft, because of the way it's been structured, you'd really hope that all of these players aren't a rotation risk. And then the forwards, Watkins and Haaland. Again, Cannon as the fodder option there. If I was to be critical, if I wanted to really chop and change it, I could probably downsize Watkins to a Isak, but then I'd need some sort of attacking Aston Villa cover in midfield, and I can't really justify relying on Rodgers. So I think Watkins is an absolute must if you're not going to pick Mohamed Salah. You're not going to pick Mohamed Salah. Haaland is an absolute must, as is Cole Palmer. And it kind of means that you'd need to just stretch the funds out in midfield. Alexander Arnold is an absolute must if you're not going to have Mohamed Salah. With the defense, if I really wanted to stretch out some of the funds here, actually, I could very easily take £500,000 out for Pedro Porro, well, £1 million out, and get a £4.5 million defender, let's say Ezri Konsa, and then Nkunku, I could upgrade him to Maddison, but then Maddison's form was somewhat patchy, really, during the 23-24 season. So this isn't like the be-all or end-all as a no Mohamed Salah draft, but I'm just demonstrating here that without Mohamed Salah, you can beef up that defense and you could pretty much trust them for at least, up until 7 or 8 game weeks. The only big criticism is the midfield could be somewhat lacking, but then Garnacho could be underpriced potentially. Same with Hudson-Odoi if they hit the ground running. I think Gordon for Newcastle at home is absolute no nonsense. And Nkunku, fitness permitting, alongside Palmer, is one to really watch out for. Nkunku was the one who's been reclassified and the price has dropped significantly. So there's a lot that you'd want to hope for with him in this draft. And again, in terms of your bench depth, got Cannon, Weiss, and Harwood Bellis. I don't think I've done any real drafts or mock drafts in preseason where there's been a robust sub one really at all. I think Declan Rice was one in one of the super early drafts that I did, but it's something that I can't really justify when you've got Haaland at 15 million. And it might change actually, because I'm looking actually to also see what would I produce in a future draft, mock draft, without Haaland and without Mohamed Salah. So that's one that I will potentially be looking at. And also a bench boost draft as well for game week 1 to see if there is any upside in doing a bench boost with the players that you have available. And then with that bench boost draft, of course, you'd ultimately sacrifice a premium player, but then you've got the peace of mind that if your bench is very strong with bench boost, that you could potentially roll a transfer for 2 or 3 game weeks. And that would effectively mean that you could wildcard a bit later on as well. So that's one to keep in mind as well. But there we have it. This is my no Salah draft. I feel that I probably could have invested more in the midfield if I downsized Saliba and Porro and Alexander-Arnold. Could probably switch him out to Van Dijk. And if I knew for certain that like a Diaz or Jota wouldn't be an X-Min's issue, that I'd almost certainly flip out Nkunku and get one of them in. So there you have it. Let me know in the comments below what you think with this no Salah draft. Have I got the balance right? Have I got the balance wrong? What would you do different? As always, if you're able to like, share and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. Take care and all the best.